and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
USA, your imperialist military dictatorship, according to Ralph Nader. That's what I heard this week, and that's what we've become.
But it's Women's History Month.
Yes, it is. And there were demonstrations from coast to coast against the hollowing out of our constitutional republic, including a big transgender rights march in Washington, D.C.
The resistance is growing. The demonstrations are getting big. Particularly one at Fox News this week here in New York. I love that one. And 2 big court wins for transgender health care for youth.
Are you sitting down? Democrats in the U.S. Senate blocked a Republican bill to ban trans youth in sports.
Only because they needed 60 to pass it.
No.
More on that later. But Trump mixed racism and anti-LGBTQ bigotry in his hateful speech to Congress.
Whew. The Trump Department of Homeland Security has green-lighted surveillance of people solely based on their sexual orientation.
And the Trump Department of Education invited a witch hunt against any school celebrating diversity.
Turn them in.
But it's a cute, funny twist to that one.
The Trump State Department essentially now has banned trans visitors from obtaining visas to this country.
And Trump has pulled out of the UN LGBTI core group.
They've abandoned us. The Art Museum of the Americas has canceled Black and LGBTQ exhibits.
Have any of us heard of the Art Museum of the Americas before?
But now we have. This is what you learn from watching Gay USA.
Constant education, even if you're hosting Gay USA.
Yes.
Iowa has rescinded civil rights protections for transgender people.
Awful, just awful. But South Dakota Republicans, a few of them, enough, joined Democrats in killing an anti-same-sex marriage resolution.
Is the world still turning? We will remember a gay Jewish leader who was a Stonewall veteran and a pioneering black gay activist in Philadelphia.
Hundreds of thousands now are facing death in the wake of the Trump-Musk cuts to HIV/AIDS programs overseas. We'll see if that Supreme Court decision affects any of this.
And to make a quick switch, a breakthrough at the Oscars for a gay black costume designer.
And thank you to our viewer, Craig, for the very kind note that you sent us. We didn't have a return address, so we're thanking you over the air.
From Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. All right, where should we begin?
Well, so, the resistance. Look, hundreds marched in D.C. on Saturday for trans rights. We have some B-roll of that. No members of Congress showed up. It was sponsored by the Transgender Unity Rally organized by the Trans Unity Coalition. It began at the Capitol to have the B-roll there, and it continued to march to the Ellipse.
There it is.
Yeah,
windy. It was so windy, it blew the video away.
Out of the closets and into the streets, they were all shouting. They're now deciding how to deny visas to people who want to come to World Pride there in Washington, D.C., and may ban all transgender people.
Yeah, I think that's where we're headed. No trans people allowed in the United States.
Well, this is, it started with not wanting transgender people coming to L.A. for the Olympics in 2028. This is just outrageous.
Well, but these demonstrations are growing. There were big demonstrations in Atlanta, hundreds of people marching for trans rights, in San Francisco, all over, and it... And then
you were at one in New York City.
I was at the Tesla showroom in the West Village.
This was a big one.
It was. They get bigger all the time. There were hundreds of people at this one. This is some video of it. 9 people got arrested doing a sit-in the lobby. There, look how big this is.
This is a video from Rise and Resist by Sandy Batcham.
Yeah, I was there for quite a while, and it was a terrific demo with people. My favorite sign was "Send Musk back to outer space."
Right. Well, Musk is, so
That was the cops telling him, if you want to be arrested, you have to move further into the building.
But Musk is slashing everything indiscriminately. Well, no, it's not indiscriminate. Mostly to enrich himself.
It's shocking.
And his cuts to Social Security staff are expected. Cutting like half the Social Security staff. Are expected to lead to a disruption of checks for the first time in history within 90 days. And then there's the cuts to the National Weather Service. So these aren't being done strategically.
No, it's all just.
Well, no. Again, he wants to do the satellites for the weather, so that's why the Weather Service is being cut.
And does he want to run Social Security too? Their line is,
yes, privatize it.
We're not cutting Social Security. We're just cutting the bloated staff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And demos across the country supporting Ukraine and opposing the Trump-Vance withdrawal from NATO and 80 years of mutual defense and their alignment with Russia. The DOD is no longer monitoring for cyber attacks by Russia because we're now with Russia.
And we're cutting off all aid to Ukraine until they completely prostrate themselves in front of us. But there was a really interesting big demo outside Fox News. Every week, every Tuesday, Truth Tuesdays, Rise and Resist for several years now has been going to the Fox News headquarters on 6th Avenue in New York City. And, they might have 15 people, 20 people. This is who showed up this week. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people outside Fox News yelling at them to tell the truth.
And a huge demo in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Versus Trump and Musk. This is a photo by Mark Peterson, one of our viewers. So that went down. And then I went to the St. Patrick's Day, the St. Pat's for All parade in Queens. And this is not a typical St. Patrick's Day parade. A lot of the politicians show up. They were very anti-Trump and Musk. The Grand Marshals there, the Grand Marshal was Mickey Murray, and he's there with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, so it's very political. And they have contingents in this parade. It's, they have Girl Scout troops and things like that, but they had, next slide, stop the deportations of the St. Patrick's Day. You're not allowed to do this on Fifth Avenue on St. Patrick's Day. The only thing you're allowed to protest is Brits out of Ireland.
It seems a little yesterday, but it also was the first year that.
What do you mean? We haven't had unification of Ireland yet.
That's true. The St. Patrick's Day parade on Staten Island, finally, having reached détente, welcomed an LGBT group into the St. Patrick's Day parade there. No problems. Everybody happy, everyone welcomed.
Thanks to our disgraced mayor, Eric Adams. He engineered that. But Republicans are now, you're hearing about this, they're so afraid of us that they're advising their members don't have in-person town hall meetings where constituents can show up and protest because it makes them look terrible, which they are. Somebody pointed out, if all this was making America great again, they'd be standing up there and saying, look what all these things are doing to make America great. Aren't you proud?
Well, they are completely shameful because they are talking their way out of this by saying the people coming are not your constituents. They are paid Democrats. And Senator Marshall from Kansas, he says, I've been to the parking lot. I've looked at the license plates, and they're not from here, and they're driving Mercedes.
Well, they're certainly not driving Teslas.
Well, they are. Oh, they may be if they're, not if they're against Marshall. But I find this so shameful, the lies about, unending lies about not willing to be, to confront the reality of their constituents being angry at them.
So constituents, all you have to do now, and weather's getting better, is have your protests outside. Get some microphones and stand outside their offices and have town meetings with people especially from the district.
Go inside their offices. Don't do it just outside. Confront them personally, or wait till they come out of the office and confront them.
Chase them down the street.
Absolutely. I refuse to back off so much that it becomes non-confrontational with these people.
No, it's got to be more confrontational.
Exactly. So they are liars, they are cheats, and they are toadies to a dictator. They must be confronted directly.
And the idea is, and I even heard Chuck Schumer say it on the news this morning. He said, I had a conference call with 500 activists. We were not invited. I don't know who was.
I think he said we expected 500 and 3,000 showed up on the call.
Well, whatever. And the strategy is what we, of course, have been advocating here, so they must watch the show. Go into the swing districts of the Republicans and make their lives miserable. That's what has to happen.
I thought he was still too soft.
Oh, of course.
Horrible.
Of course.
There's no reason he can't go up there and call them liars.
But he's no good when he gets hot. He goes things like, "We're gonna win. We're gonna win." That's, come on, Chuck.
It's true. Stay home, Chuck. The rest of us will go out in the streets and do things. It was great to be at the Tesla demonstration. It feels so good to go yell at these people. I really highly recommend it. And you can see from these crowds that we're showing you that all your friends are out there and they're having a wonderful time. And it allows you to express this anger, and that's great.
And none of them are being paid.
That we know of.
Well, watch out for agents provocateurs.
Yes.
But let's get Chuck.
I have to say, all this, I must digress occasionally. All this stuff about, the FBI, they're being destroyed by Kash Patel, the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful FBI. The FBI sent agents provocateurs into ACT UP meetings and created division in the group and told lies, and they do that everywhere. They've done it for years.
Sure. Now, let's give Chuck Schumer some credit, because the Democrats in the Senate did use their power of blocking a vote by not granting cloture to the bill was to ban transgender youth from participating in sports. So the Democrats helped kill it.
Because the Republicans made the mistake of not including this in their overall bill that is not going to need 60 votes.
Well, that can be difficult, because they all have to have fiscal implications to be in that bill.
They could have found a way to do it.
They can try, but there's somebody who sits in the back.
This is a bill that passed the House with
narrowly.
Yes, only needed a majority vote, and they got that. And then it goes to the Senate, and it needs 60 votes in the Senate, because this is all about the continuing filibuster, and they could not get 60 votes. They could not get a single Democrat to vote for it. Every Republican voted for it. Every Democrat voted against it. And the end result, except two of each on each side who didn't vote.
And they'll want to use this, the Republicans, in campaigns against Democrats. But I think we have a lot of material to use against them the next time all this stuff comes up.
And we may have reached a tipping point.
I hope so. And then we've told you about federal judge Brendan Herson there in Baltimore, nominated by President Biden, who has now granted the preliminary injunction to block enforcement of Trump's orders that, deny federal funding to providers of gender-affirming care for those under 19. So that's terrific. And I want to read his quote. He said, "The court cannot fathom discrimination more direct than the plain pronouncement of a policy resting on the premise that the group to which the policy is directed does not exist." Well, I mean, that's what they're basically saying. There are no transgender people.
Oh.
That's what the policy says.
Right.
There's only man and woman.
So
that's all there is. There's no trans.
So we shouldn't allow this. More and more governors are standing up to say we're going to support trans athletes. And Pam Bondi, our Attorney General, says in response to that, we'll get you.
We'll get you. Well, and so Judge Herson, that's a national injunction. That means these hospitals that stopped it should start providing it again if you're in any way decent.
Well, except that the Trump administration is not following some court decisions.
Well, let's see where that goes.
Yeah.
But in Washington State, another U.S. District Court Judge, Lauren King, another appointment of President Biden, and a Native American, by the way, she also blocked the Trump directive about stopping federal funding for research and education grants to medical schools and hospitals that provide gender-affirming care. This is why the hospitals are so worried. Because they do get so much federal money.
Absolutely, and universities too. Let's take a little moment to
I just finish off on her. She found that the order's use of disparaging terminology with the words maiming, sterilizing, and mutilation contradicts what is typical for gender-affirming care in the United States.
Not to mention the all people are created equal in the United States Constitution or Declaration of Independence or whatever it is. But let's take a moment to listen to our fearless leader from his speech to the Congress.
Okay, all right.
I have it next on my list of items. I just want to remind people of how he talks.
Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real.
And we're real people, and all he does is make sick jokes, and those two characters in the back, Vance and Mike Johnson, just yucking it up, and the Republicans all laughing. It's just so disgusting.
But the Democrats' response was not exactly inspiring.
Well, here's a picture of them. They were holding up signs like, "That's a lie," "false." You know, out trans member Sarah McBride did not hold up any signs despite repeated attacks on transgender people. I'm getting a little, she thinks her statement is just being herself. But, you got to join the resistance here.
Well, theoretically, yes. But how do you think she would be treated if she was being more outspoken?
Well, what's the difference?
Asking.
What is the difference at this point? Why is anybody holding back? Okay, back to some other stories. By the way, I mentioned Mayor Eric Adams in New York. His own Commission on Gender Equity called on him to resign if he doesn't lay out a strategy for defending transgender New Yorkers, women, and immigrants against the Trump administration's threats to those people. They've lost confidence in him. He appointed all these people.
All right. Trump wants no federal funds for schools that allow illegal protests.
Yes.
Some have been pointing out that protesting is legal.
And by the way, these right-wing anti-LGBTQ activists like Chaya Raichik and Christopher Rufo, we've told you a lot about them. They're the ones feeding the federal agencies all these things, like Pam Bondi.
Yep.
Go after them, go after them.
Yep.
No one is too extreme for this administration. That anti-straight discrimination case that went before the Supreme Court, we told you about it last week. Mm-hmm. It looks as if the court, all they're going to do is affirm that anyone protected under a category like sexual orientation is covered. Heterosexual, homosexual, doesn't matter.
Which is what we've said all along.
They don't seem to be going along with the right wing, which wants more out of the case to open the doors to bring complaints from white people in workplaces that just practice DEI.
Basically, if you give a job to a person who isn't a white, straight male,
there must be something wrong because they're the ones who are qualified to do the jobs, and then you're going with these affirmative action hires.
Well, it's true. They do not want to see anybody who's different from that. They just don't want anybody to exist or have any power.
They're angry that blacks have taken over basketball.
They're a little late on that. They have canceled NIH-funded research on LGBTQ people and cancer.
Yes.
No more research on cancer.
The New York Civil Liberties Union has appealed a Nassau County Supreme Court decision maintaining that the county's trans sports ban. So I think they'll do well in the higher courts in New York.
The Department of Defense has barred all trans people from the military academies, new recruits, people already serving, unless they revert to their biosex, which they define as their sex at conception, which of course is wrong because everybody is female at conception. Male chromosomes show up a little later.
You learn a lot from watching this show, and I hope it goes over in court. We kind of buried one of the big headlines this week, and we did tell you that this bill was passed, but Iowa rescinded its trans rights part of the human rights law and removed gender identity protection. There's a big demonstration there, a massive demonstration in Iowa to protest. This is the first time that Iowa, or I can't think of hardly any state.
No, this is the first rescission of civil rights legally in any state. And last week we knew the legislature had passed it, but we weren't positive, even though we suspected as much, that the governor would sign that.
Governor Kim Reynolds, there she is. And by the way, 5 House Republicans joined all Democrats in voting against it. And be grateful for something. They didn't get rid of the sexual orientation section of the law protecting us yet.
Yes, it's only a matter of time. Back to the military. So no trans can serve unless they revert to their biosex. Only male, female pronouns will be allowed. Certainly no DEI, but they say this is not about DEI. They also say the latest proclamation is Air Force members who are trans must quit the service within 2 weeks from now. But
unless they can obtain a waiver stating their warfighting skills.
Things like that are a tell, because warfighting is a term that Pete Hegseth has been using all along. And really all they want out of the military is to have these vicious fighters go out and wreak havoc around the world.
Like the Russians.
They don't see any value in the military beyond war fighters.
Well, Judge Reyes, who is overseeing the case that challenges this ban, has requested a detailed breakdown of how many transgender do you have.
They don't know. The Williams Institute knows.
How's it working out? They don't know.
Well, yes, and these are revelatory, these answers they give, because if they don't know, could it be because they can't tell?
No.
Think about that. All right.
Okay. The Department of this is really chilling. The Department of Homeland Security unit estimated policies prohibiting personnel from conducting intelligence activities based solely on they've eliminated policies prohibiting personnel from conducting intelligence activities based solely on a person's gender identity or sexual orientation. So they can just look into you as a suspicious person if they suspect, a touch of pink there.
Well, given the Defense Department's answers, perhaps they're not able to make any suspicious evaluations. The Moms for Liberty have convinced the Department of Education to put up a website that solicits reports from the public on DEI programs in public schools. Any discrimination based on race or sex in publicly funded K through 12 schools. In other words, any mention of race or sexual orientation or gender identity. But here's the fun twist.
Yes.
So people are now
It is a witch hunt, but
it is. But people, they did this in Idaho or Utah, whichever set this up
Utah,
before.
yeah.
And now the national hotline is being flooded by people making crazy reports. My favorite being the person who said, I have reported Hogwarts School for accepting muggles.
But they're also using the forms to attach scripts of Hollywood movies.
Yes.
So that you have to wade through it and see what they're saying. I mean, you got to muck up the system.
And the reporting form only allows 450 words per report, not letters, words. So they're submitting these scripts with all the words put together, so it's all just one word. 100-page script.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious plus.
Yes.
Now,
People are clever. You can't get around them.
And then here's another horrible story. We, the United States, have pulled out of the United Nations LGBTI core group, which supports the rights of LGBTQ and intersex people around the world. Now, this is, so outrageous. Chile and the Netherlands are the co-chairs of the group, but you read who's on it, and it's so many nations around the world, from North Macedonia to Ecuador and Japan, and we're dropping out.
They don't care. And our new Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has had some information leaked to her about some inter-office chat rooms, and has ended up firing 100 intelligence officers who she accuses of having sex talks on this chat line.
Some of it was transgender people talking about issues that they go through and things with their bodies and things like that. It was not a sex talk.
No.
But it was enough for Tulsi, who was a raving bigot, to get rid of 100 of these officers. And in terms of intelligence and the CIA, all that stuff, LGBTQ people are the heart of these. We're the ones who are really good at this and sleuthing and things like that.
I would submit we're good at most things.
All right.
USAID is now 90% canceled. All HIV and AIDS projects are canceled. They're going back and forth.
Yes, but what about the Supreme Court decision, which said that the foreign aid must be unfrozen? They're kicking it. The Supreme Court 5-4, right? Kicked it back to the judge, said, now you decide, what really needs to be cut and shouldn't be cut.
Well, yes, but the problem is that we are also hearing reports as these court decisions are made that the Trump administration is just ignoring the courts.
If you're ignoring the courts, you should be impeached. But of course,
you are treasonous if you are ignoring the courts.
People arguing for impeachment of Trump, you're just going to get Vance, and then you're going to get Mike Johnson, the Christian supremacist speaker, and then you're going to get the senile Chuck Grassley, and then it's down to 17 cabinet members, including the last one is Kristi Noem. There's not a good one on the list.
No.
Not even Marco Rubio, who got 98 votes confirming as Secretary of State. And he may have just barred most transgender people with updated gender markers seeking visas from obtaining entry into the United States. So how can we can't ask people, you wouldn't want to come here if you were transgender, and certainly not for, the what is it, the March of Washington,
World Pride.
World Pride.
Well, here's an interesting story. So we have a frequent correspondent in Texas, a trans woman, who keeps us up to date on some of this on the ground. And she wrote me to say that she had just had her passport renewed and it has an F gender marker. And I said to her, well, how did you do that? Because we've been told that you can't. And she said, well, my birth certificate is F. And that's why we fought for so many years for people to be able to change their gender marker, not just on like driver's licenses, but on their birth certificate.
So when you're with the State Department and you are adjudicating this, you can rely on documents provided by the applicant. But if other evidence casts reasonable doubt on the applicant's sex, you should refuse the case and request additional evidence to demonstrate sex at birth. Now, this is sex at birth, not at conception.
But that's my point, that people who have changed their birth certificates all the State Department can do is look at birth certificates, and if the birth certificate gender marker corresponds with your current identity, where are they going to go after that?
But a lot of transgender people who have changed their markers have not gone through all the stuff with the birth certificates.
My point being that you might want to consider that so that you have more protection. The people who have successfully fought for that over the years have more protection.
And my question is, what does a person have to go through to get the birth certificate changed?
Well, that's probably state by state.
Yeah. And if you misrepresent it, the State Department is saying you could be targeted for permanent ineligibility. But why would you want to come here when a lot of us are thinking of getting out of here?
That could be a gift.
And if anybody has any ideas, please email us about, I realize I could get a passport from Romania, where my grandparents were from, but I don't know.
Yeah, mine go back too far to probably be able to pull that off. Is it New York City or no? I guess the federal government is threatening to withdraw $50 million from Columbia University because they haven't done enough to punish pro-Palestinian demonstrators.
And then there's this art museum that we sadly had not heard of before. It's called the Art Museum of the Americas in Washington, D.C. They have terminated exhibitions of works by Afro, Latino, Caribbean, and African American artists that the Trump administration allegedly withdrew the show's funding and cracks down on DEI. And they're also going after a Canadian LGBTQ exhibit. This is the kind of, you want to cancel gay people and black people in art? What are you going to have left?
Well, they don't care. They don't go to museums. So, but here's the point. It's not like they are doing that with some announced intention to screw white people. This is just in the course of things, they do these exhibits, but evidently you're not allowed to show or talk about black people, queer
I would think
people.
a good court case would be if they have an exhibit of European artists and they say, well, you allowed that and you cut this, you're being discriminatory. You are being discriminatory.
Well, the discriminators would say, but all you're allowed to show is European art because that's the best art, and the rest of this is just making good.
The U.S. Marine Band canceled a collaboration with young musicians of color following Trump's orders. It's so depressing.
Exactly my point. You can't be seen with anyone
and the Department of Defense schools, which serve 67,000 students worldwide of service members, they've banned STEM clubs for girls and pride clubs for everybody, and Black History Month assemblies have been canceled. Now, it is possible that the clubs could continue off campus if the employees volunteer to do it.
And
please, and so far, I think we've been in compliance with the English only mandate here at Gay USA, but that may change in the course of the show.
And in Washington, D.C., at DuPont Circle, the National Park Service has removed the T and the Q from a plaque explaining that it was an LGBTQ gathering place.
Where is this?
DuPont Circle in D.C.
Oh, for God's sakes. Just, put up your own sign. NASCAR has a diversity problem, apparently. Of the 42 drivers on the list for the Daytona 500, only one was black and 0 were women. But the America First Legal Foundation, this is Stephen Miller, top Trump advisor, has asked the EEOC, you have to do a formal investigation alleging ongoing, deliberate, and illegal discrimination against white male Americans. It's one of 20 letters he sent to groups like Nordstrom, Major League Baseball, Tyson Foods, Anheuser-Busch, Morgan Stanley, and the airlines.
Would NASCAR practice DEI by putting one woman and one black guy in their race? I don't think so. But meanwhile, wait a minute, I just had this. Riley Gaines offered a prayer, was enlisted to offer a prayer at a NASCAR race in Austin, Texas, and her prayer was, bless Trump and his cabinet. And I'm happy to tell you that some NASCAR fans there were offended because they thought that was too political.
Paramount
Sure.
Pictures, they have two gay CEOs, George Cheeks and Chris McCarthy. They told employees they're ending numerous DEI inclusive policies to comply with Trump's executive order. And they also cited the Supreme Court and federal mandates and things that they have to do. So we're no longer set or use aspirational numerical goals related to race, ethnicity, sex, or gender of hires. It goes on. And then they say, but values like inclusivity and collaboration are part of the Paramount culture and will continue to be. Bunk.
Well, we told you last week about the governor of Maine supporting trans athletes will follow the law in a confrontation with Trump. And now in Maine, State Representative Laurel Libby posted a picture and the dead name of a female trans athlete. She's been barred from the House in Maine until she apologizes, which she refuses to do.
I'm surprised Trump didn't bring that up in his endless speech last night.
She should have been his special guest at the speech.
Let's give some credit to South Dakota Republicans because a few of them helped kill an anti-marriage equality resolution that put it to rest. It was killed in committee. One Republican said, there's nothing in this that requires the Catholic Church to perform gay marriages. Come on.
Well, this is
another Republican in South Dakota said, regardless of concerns he has over marriage equality, this resolution symbolized nothing but hate.
Because they have no power with these resolutions. They don't mean anything. They're petitioning the Supreme Court to bring a case. You can't just ask the Supreme Court to do something. And Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's response to Michigan legislators who wanted to do this was...
Can you say it on the show?
Hell no.
Oh, okay.
Hell no. She looked right in the camera and said, hell no.
I think she held up her finger with her ring on it,
Yeah.
And I think it was her middle finger.
It was a selfie, so yes, she could have been holding her phone like that.
In 4 other states, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Texas, they've introduced bills to privilege heterosexual marriages with covenant marriage from which we would be excluded.
We don't want covenant marriage, thank you very much. That is tough.
But they're doing it, at least in Oklahoma, to create inequality in marriage rights and invite a legal challenge that could be used to overturn the Obergefell decision.
Well, see, they at least are going to court. These other fools are just doing nothing.
We want to remind you again that Wisconsin votes on a state high court vacancy on April 1st. You've got an election. Of course, you live in Wisconsin. You know this. You're being bombarded with ads, but you must know that the right-wing Republican, Brad Scheimel, is a virulent anti-gay bigot, and
being supported by millions of Musk dollars.
Yep. So watch out for him. The Democratic candidate is Dane County Circuit Judge Susan Crawford. That might be the one you want to vote for.
Not that we are partisan. In Cincinnati, Ohio...
I said might.
And I am reemphasizing that. The University of Cincinnati has backtracked on its bathroom signs that said biological men, biological women.
What does it say now?
They have canceled it. Students protested, and they have canceled that designation on the bathroom signs.
All right. Here in New York City, former New York disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo, credibly accused by many women of sexual harassment, is now the leading candidate for mayor of New York. Now, this is interesting. That's a picture of him from a while ago at a gay pride march, marching with his then partner, Sandra Lee, the lifestyle guru on TV. And she, by the way, is saying, he's taken all the credit for the same-sex marriage thing. I was the impetus behind all that. Not all of it, but in terms of the state getting, moving that bill across the line.
He was always against legalizing same-sex marriage for years.
Yeah.
And he was very late on it, and I'm not surprised to hear she was hectoring him on it. But he then went on to claim credit not only for supporting it when he had been against it all those years, which he conveniently didn't mention, but he claimed that he was a leader on it in the country, that his endorsing it and putting New York on the record was ahead of everybody else when he was not.
And we just want to say that it was our pal, Danny O'Donnell, who was in the Assembly. If you're still watching, Danny, we hope you are. Who, of course, really championed and made that bill happen. But now they're talking about Andrew Cuomo as a potential presidential candidate in 2028. It's just grotesque.
Fine, because he won't win that. I don't want him to win mayor, and I don't believe that he can sustain a leadership position in the race for as long as he has to.
I have to explain this to New York voters. I'm sorry, there's a little, if you want to stop Andrew Cuomo, and of course Eric Adams has almost no chance now, you get 5 votes in the primary in June. Use all 5 of them. Don't waste any of your votes.
Ranked choice voting.
And don't give any of them, but you got to use all 5 votes, otherwise he wins.
We'll discuss that down the road. And congratulations to the new president and CEO of the LGBTQ Victory Institute, the organization that supports LGBTQ candidates for office. Evan Lowe from California, where he was a mayor and a member of the assembly, he had what did he run for that he lost?
Congress.
Yes.
Very narrowly in a primary.
Yes.
He actually, no. Well, yes, he did lose it, but he got into the runoff very narrowly.
Yes.
But he was identified by New York Magazine back in 2016 as a potential U.S. presidential candidate in 2024, along with 9 other young Democrats who, like Obama, have unusual ambition.
Well, he's an experienced politician, so putting Anise Parker, the former mayor of Houston, who has been the president of the Victory Institute for years, announced some time ago she was retiring.
Former mayor of Houston.
As I just said.
Yes. I'm sorry. Catching up with you.
Yes. So I'm glad that they have picked someone who is experienced in political life to run it.
Okay, now I need you to do that story.
Canandaigua, New York. The city council has passed a resolution. That's where the poor trans guy was murdered.
Sam Nordquist.
A terrible story. So the city council of Canandaigua has just passed a resolution saying that they are welcoming to all people. They don't want to be thought of as
I have to say, they
place.
passed it. They reject bigotry, hate, and all forms of discrimination. They didn't actually mention transgender, but they want to send a signal in the midst of this awful crime.
They do. And Philadelphia has sent a signal. They are saying that their schools are going to support trans athletes, which is good to hear. And the anonymous security firm in Idaho that dragged that woman out of the meeting.
Yes.
They have had their business license revoked.
Wow. Great.
Very good. See, we're winning some of these things.
Talk about some of the people we've lost.
Oh, wait. And Apple shareholders have rejected a proposal to kill DEI policies at Apple.
This was proposed by out gay CEO Tim Cook.
Well, he's been sitting in the audience with Trump everywhere.
Yes, he has. All right, some of the people we've lost.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you one more time. Huntington Beach, California, Chris Cluey, who gave that wonderful, eloquent speech to the city council and then got himself arrested.
He was defending trans people. They wanted to put up a MAGA plaque on the building.
Fired from his job as a high school coach.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, wow. All right, some of the people we've lost. Michael Levine was a Stonewall participant and an early leader of the gay synagogue in New York, Congregation Bet Simchat Torah. He died at 81. He was one of the patrons in the bar at the time of the raid, on a date, drinking and dancing. When the lights went up, the music went off, and you could hear a pin drop. And then there's Tyrone Smith in Philadelphia. As a teenager, he took part in Philadelphia's African-American gay bar scene. He was a participant in the drag ball scene. He joined the Halloween drag parades in the 50s and 60s. And he was a co-founder and served as the longtime executive director of North Philadelphia's grassroots organization, Unity Incorporated. So he's a leading African-American and AIDS activist in Philadelphia.
Have you watched the new version 3 of Eyes on the Prize that's running on HBO?
No.
Half a dozen episodes. And the first one, a half hour.
It's about the civil rights movement.
Yes, the first version of Eyes on the Prize is so important and so beautiful. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Watch it. But this is the third version, and the first episode is half about the Banana Kelly redevelopment in the Bronx and what they fought for there, and the second half is about the Philadelphia Unity HIV/AIDS organization and the fight against HIV in Philadelphia. So I highly recommend it.
Which Tyrone Smith was a big part of.
Yes.
We lost Hazel Dukes, the president of New York State's NAACP. She died at her home in Harlem at 92. And I worked with Hazel over the years. Anybody involved in civil rights in New York did over the years. She was also a member of the Black Leadership Commission on AIDS. She was born in Montgomery, Alabama, next door to Rosa Parks.
It's all the neighborhood.
And
wow.
She moved to New York, but she was kind of a fearless leader. Now here's the thing. She's 92. She worked right up until the end. Now, we've been looking to retire for a long time, but I guess we can't when we have examples of people like Hazel.
I should stop talking about how old I am. And we also lost Tim Kruger, also known as Marcel Bond.
That's his legal name, yeah.
Yeah, 44 years old, 44.
Yeah.
He was a well-known porn star as Tim, series Tim Tales.
Yes.
He died in a home accident, which I think is all we know about it.
No foul play, survived by his partner of 20 years, Grobes Garrett. They're German.
Yeah.
And but anyway. All right, international news?
One more. I'm sorry,
Oh,
death of another young black trans woman. Amiri Dior, 23 years old in Milwaukee, shot dead in a bedroom. Her mother said that people should live in the truth. Tell people who you are so they can love you. A very supportive mother and a very sad,
that really helps.
Again, story.
Awful.
Yeah.
International news. Our international support for LGBTQ people in places such as Uganda, which was not much to begin with, has been withdrawn. And many of these asylum seekers, these are people who come from other African nations, asylum seekers, they were getting like a place to stay, a shelter. Mm-hmm. That money has just been withdrawn. They face death.
Well, in India, the cutting of USAID money is closing down 3 health clinics for trans people around the country.
We have a picture of this. A Spanish city has honored 2 Senegalese migrants for their heroism in trying to save a gay man who ended up being beaten to death by a homophobic mob. Ibrahima Dayak and Maguette and D.A. were given adopted sons of the city status.
Karunya.
There you go, on Monday in a formal ceremony. They were the only ones to intervene while other people are just using their cameras to take pictures of this mob scene. The 24-year-old Samuel Luis eventually died of his injuries at the hospital, and this sparked national outrage, but they were the heroes of the situation. These are the people, of course, that Trump would want to throw out of the country.
Yeah, terrible that the guy died. Very moving that they stepped forward, even as undocumented immigrants.
4 men were arrested in connection with the murder, and they received long prison sentences.
And in the Gulf of Mexico, on a gay cruise for the gay cruise company Vacaya, on a chartered Royal Caribbean or Royal Caribbean ship, the cruise passengers rescued 11 refugees drifting on a boat in the Gulf of what we will continue to call the Gulf of Mexico. And the passengers gave these refugees clothes, water, food, medical help. There they are. In the yellow boat on the right are the rescuers, and on the blue sailboat on the left are the refugees. They just stopped the cruise and picked up these refugees and helped them.
The first time this company has made a rescue at sea. Hungary's Budapest Pride should be canceled, should be held in a closed venue, according to the chief of staff to Viktor Orban, citing child protection. Now, they've been marching in the streets for decades in Hungary, and this is how bad it's gotten, if you don't think they're coming after us.
Terrible.
In Austria, the homeland of Adolf Hitler, but the three mainstream parties have agreed to govern without the far-right Freedom Party, the fascist party, which did finish first in the elections.
AIDS news?
Well, and in China, companies are telling employees, get married and have kids, or you're fired.
Now, was that China or was that J.D. Vance?
That was China.
Well, wait for it. It's coming here.
Yes. Okay. Health news, yes.
Okay. In another round of demonstrations, Housing Works, ACT UP, and TAG went to D.C. to hold a demonstration in a congressional office building to support PEPFAR, and 21 of them got arrested. There you see them arraying themselves.
I see
on
our
the
pal
floor.
Eric Sawyer there, front and center, an old ACT UPper.
Yeah, still an ACT UPper.
Yeah.
Well,
I just mean he's older.
Justice Roberts has allowed delays in funding of this kind of help.
Now, Trump changes what he says about things every 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
But you know, he had said, we're not touching Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid. But of course, he is now doing that. And Tammy Baldwin went after him. You know, we lose these programs, we're dead.
Well, they think that's fine. But they claim they're not going to cut these programs. They're going to cut the staff from these programs. Well, if you don't have the staff, the program is not going to
Well, they say at Social Security, you know, these are seasoned professionals who know how to talk to 90-year-old people who are calling with issues on the phone. Your little kids from the Musk organization are not going to be able to do that.
Or yes, those kids. But that's what's happening in all these departments. They're getting rid of all the expertise, all the people who care. They don't care. They're sociopaths. They have absolutely no interest in helping people. They just want to get rid of everybody.
It's a war on America. And again, I mean, this is the most profound thing, of course, that happened this week is we switched sides in the Cold War, you know, with Russia. And we are now, United States is now on their side.
Yes, very explicitly.
Against Europe and our longtime allies. I mean, these are allies. These are we're breaking treaties. We're breaking treaties in the the imposition of these tariffs. Trump signed these things. You've heard it on the news. But these are agreements that we made and signed with these other countries. And
we're violating laws all over the place in our own country, again and again, day after day. So one thing you might want to check out is ACT UP in New York City is holding an emergency town hall meeting next week on Tuesday the 11th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Community Center at 208 West 13th Street. This is going to be both local issues and national issues. And if you want to get involved, you can get involved with Rise and Resist, which is doing bigger and bigger demonstrations. You can get involved with ACT UP in specifically medical issues.
You can organize your own.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Well, if Hazel Dukes
what good is sitting at home and you're, come to the cabaret?
If Hazel Dukes and Rosa Parks were neighbors who got involved, think what you could accomplish.
Here at home, the murderous HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy, who advises you to take vitamin A if you want to fight measles, I mean, it's insane, has announced a new policy that ends 50 years of public involvement in the department's rulemaking by eliminating public comments on certain cases.
You may have heard somewhere along the way that proposed rules have to be published in the Federal Register, a government publication, to alert the public, and then the public is invited to make comments. And there's like a 30-day or 60-day or 90-day comment period. All gone.
And also in terms of killing you all off, the health officials are reevaluating a $590 million contract for bird flu shots that the Biden administration awarded to Moderna. Moderna was gearing up for the final stage of this, and of course, bird flu is coming hot and heavy. That's the reason that the eggs are so expensive.
I've sworn off eggs for the moment until
I don't eat very many.
Well, they tell us to have a chicken in your backyard.
No, this is the administration.
It's true.
All
have
right.
a chicken in your backyard.
Entertainment news.
How does that protect you from bird flu? Can't birds still reach your chicken in the backyard?
No, it's hitting cows too. Entertainment news. So Cynthia Erivo and Lena Waithe, they're a couple. Erivo kicked off the show, the Oscars, with a medley with Ariana Grande, and Erivo and Waithe have been together since they met at the Met Gala in 2018. They're quite the power couple.
Well, we referred to them recently, but I wasn't sure whether or not they were still together. So I spotted them in the audience at the Oscars sitting together, and I thought, aha, yes, they're still together.
And in terms of the Oscars, Sean Baker, the director of Anora and his screenwriter, he won 4 Oscars. This is the most anybody has ever won for one film. And Mikey Madison won for Best Actress for playing the lead there as the sex worker, and they both gave big shout outs to all the sex workers who helped them in the making of this film.
Love that. Have you seen the movie?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, me too. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I mean it is very vulgar. The costume designer of Wicked, Paul Tazewell, who's already had an Emmy and a Tony, he won for Best Costume Design for Wicked, and he said that he's the first black man to get it, but he's also a gay black man, and he lost his partner, Michael McAleer, back in 2018 at the age of 45.
Well, Ruth Carter, who did the costumes for Black Panther, was the first black person to win Best Costume Design. I'm always a little uncomfortable when they say, well, the first black man to win this.
Yes.
Didn't the woman count? You know, why?
Yes,
why
they mentioned that, and I didn't. I apologize. I'm glad you did.
No, that's okay. I just think it's a little
There's
weird.
a movie coming out.
Wait a minute. I'm not quite finished with the Oscars.
Oh, okay.
Queen Latifah, very out, finally, after all these years, did a rousing version of a song from The Wiz. Bowen Yang was prominent in the production. And Amelia Perez did pick up a couple of Oscars, not, of course, for the movie itself, but...
We're almost out of time.
I'm sorry, I misread the time. Carla Gascon was at the event. Sorry.
Movie called Picture This, which is sort of a Crazy Rich Asians for Indians, is opening on Amazon March 6th. And we don't have any time to show our friend Julie, do we?
No, but we'll put it in the show note. We'll link
Julie
to it.
Halston presented our award. We were very grateful to her at the Jim Owls Club.
And grateful to Alan Roscoff and the club. Bye.